Have you ever caught yourself thinking about someone you know wasn't right for you, and still feeling pulled back? You try to move on, you try to stay strong, but something keeps bringing your mind back to them. This is the hidden struggle behind why you can't let go of a narcissist, and how you finally heal. It's not just attachment. It's not just memory. It's something deeper. Something that affects your self-worth, your peace, and your ability to trust yourself again. Do you ever wonder why, even after everything, your mind still holds on? Why clarity comes, and then disappears again? This isn't weakness. It's a pattern. And once you understand it, healing becomes possible. The pain often begins with confusion that never fully settles. You experience moments that felt genuine, steady, even reassuring, and then those moments were followed by distance, inconsistency, or behavior that didn't match what you felt before. Your mind tries to make sense of that contrast. It keeps replaying the good moments, trying to understand how they connect to the painful ones. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, which version was real? That question keeps you mentally attached, not because you want to go back, but because your mind is still searching for clarity. The truth is, inconsistency creates a loop. When something doesn't make sense, your mind doesn't easily let it go. It tries to resolve it. The insight here is that you're not holding on to the person, you're holding on to unanswered questions. Healing begins when you stop trying to decode their behavior and start acknowledging what you consistently experienced. When you focus on the overall pattern instead of isolated moments, clarity becomes more stable. At the same time, there is a quiet shift that happens within you during this experience. You begin to adjust yourself in ways that don't feel natural. You give more patience, more understanding, more effort, hoping that stability will return. Over time, your focus moves away from your own needs and toward maintaining balance in something that was never fully steady. You may not notice it immediately, but your sense of self begins to blur. Have you ever felt like you became more cautious, more restrained, or less certain about your own feelings? That's not weakness. It's what happens when your energy is constantly redirected outward. The insight is that your identity was slowly shaped around keeping things from falling apart. Healing requires a gentle shift back inward. Not in a harsh or reactive way, but in a steady, grounded way. You begin to reconnect with your own preferences, your own boundaries, and your own sense of calm, without needing external validation to confirm it. Another layer of this attachment comes from the way your emotions were conditioned over time. It wasn't just about connection, it was about the cycle your mind adapted to. There were moments of tension, then relief, then hope, followed by disappointment. That pattern creates a kind of emotional rhythm that your mind begins to expect. Even when you recognize that it wasn't healthy, part of you still feels pulled toward that intensity. Have you ever noticed how calm can feel unfamiliar after going through something unpredictable? That's because your system became used to highs and lows. The insight is that what feels strong or meaningful is sometimes just what feels familiar. Your mind associates intensity with importance, even when it causes stress. Healing begins when you slowly retrain yourself to recognize that steadiness is not emptiness. A calm, predictable emotional state may feel quiet at first, but it is where real peace and clarity begin to form. There is also the weight of replaying the past, trying to find a version of events that makes sense. You go back to conversations, decisions, and small details, wondering if something could have been done differently. Maybe if I had said this. Maybe if I had reacted differently. These thoughts keep you mentally tied to a situation that has already shown its pattern. It feels like reflection, but often it becomes a loop. Have you ever realized that even after thinking it through many times, nothing actually changes? The insight is that your mind is trying to rewrite something that was never within your control. The guidance is to gently shift from analysis to acceptance. Not approval, but acknowledgement. You begin to accept what was consistently shown rather than what was occasionally promised. That shift reduces the mental noise. It allows your thoughts to settle, bringing a sense of emotional relief and opening space for healing to take place. Letting go feels difficult because it feels like you're losing something important, something that once felt meaningful. But if you look closely, what you're holding on to is often not what consistently existed. It's what you believed it could become. Your mind keeps returning to moments of potential, imagining how things might have stabilized if circumstances were different. That imagined version becomes powerful. It creates a sense of unfinished possibility, which is harder to release than something that clearly ended. Have you ever felt like you weren't just missing what happened, but what could have happened? That's where the attachment deepens. The insight is that you're not holding on to reality. You're holding on to an expectation that never fully formed. Healing begins when you separate what was consistently present from what was only briefly felt. When you do that, the emotional weight starts to shift, and you begin to see things with more clarity and less attachment to imagined outcomes. There is also an underlying fear that keeps you connected. It's not always obvious, but it shows up in subtle ways. Fear of being alone with your thoughts, fear of starting over, or even fear of not finding something that feels as intense again. So your mind moves toward what feels familiar, even if it wasn't peaceful. Have you ever noticed how your thoughts drift back not because it was good, but because it was known? Familiarity can feel like comfort, even when it carries stress. The insight is that your mind is choosing what it recognizes, not necessarily what supports you. Healing requires building a sense of safety within yourself, so the unfamiliar doesn't feel threatening. When you begin to create calm internally, you don't need to return to what disrupted you just to feel something. That shift slowly replaces fear with stability, allowing you to move forward with more ease. Healing doesn't come from forcing yourself to forget or pushing the thoughts away every time they appear. In fact, the more you try to suppress them, the more persistent they can become. What actually helps is understanding what kept you attached in the first place. When you begin to recognize the pattern, how your mind reacts, what it replays, what it searches for, you create distance from it. Have you ever noticed that when you observe a thought instead of reacting to it, it loses some of its intensity? That's where change begins. Each time you notice the pattern without following it, you weaken its hold. You're no longer pulled automatically in the same direction. The process may feel slow, and at times it may seem like nothing is changing, but something is shifting beneath the surface. The insight is that healing is built through consistency, not urgency. You don't need to rush to be over it. You need to stay steady in how you respond. With patience, your reactions become calmer, your thoughts become less repetitive, and your sense of control starts to return. At the core of this process is the gradual rebuilding of your self-worth. Experiences like this can quietly change how you see yourself. You may begin to question your judgment, your value, or your ability to trust your own decisions. But healing is not about proving anything to the past. It's about restoring your connection with yourself in the present. When you stop looking outward for answers or closure and begin creating clarity within, your perspective shifts. You begin to feel more grounded, less dependent on external validation, and more aware of what truly supports your peace. Have you ever experienced a moment where, even briefly, you felt calm without needing anything to be resolved? That's a glimpse of what healing looks like. It's not dramatic or intense. It's steady and quiet. The insight is that your sense of worth doesn't come from what happened or from how it ended, but from how you choose to move forward. As you continue choosing clarity over confusion and self-respect over attachment, your inner stability strengthens, allowing you to rebuild trust in yourself and create space for a more balanced and peaceful state of mind. So when you think about why you can't let go of a narcissist and how you finally heal, remember this. It's not about forgetting the past. It's about understanding it and choosing peace over repetition. You're not broken. You're in a process of returning to yourself. Share your thoughts below. How are you healing today? And if this resonated with you, stay connected. Your growth, your peace, and your inner strength are worth protecting.